for another amazing episode. So, I don't know if you noticed last week's episode, like the one from Wednesday and also the one on Saturday. I was so sluggish while I was talking, and it's because I was sleepy. So, when I was telling you guys on Wednesday's episode that I'm very, very sleepy, I didn't like. I didn't understand just how much it was going to affect my recording. So I just spoke. I kept, I think, zoning out or something. Also for the Saturday episode. And then I didn't even realize it. Fast forward to the day that I'm editing, I'm listening to myself talk and I'm like, what the hell is happening to this thing? Why is it so sluggish? Why do I look like I keep zoning in and out of consciousness? Like, what is happening? I remembered, yeah, I was very, very sleepy, and that's why I was talking the way I was talking. So I don't know. I thought that this year this was going to be better. I was going to do better. When I started, believe even the first episode that I posted this year, they were better than the ones that I was now like recording in the evenings when I wasn't like when I had time, blah blah blah. Because in the morning I used to rush so much just to record so that people do not start putting music, and I don't know, the Jengo that is outside our apartment could also start doing their thing. But recording while you're sleepy is a no. Like I can't. So I've decided that if I ever feel like sleeping and I need to record, I'm just going to bed. I'd rather wake up in the morning, like I said before, like at 5 or at 6, and record before I do anything else, instead of recording at night. Because no. If I'm sleepy, I go to bed. So forgive me. I know I keep saying that you forgive me for things. Ay. But there's nothing I can do about it. I just hope that I can continue doing this thing, and one day I'll wake up and I'll have like a proper studio. I'll be recording in a proper studio with proper podcast equipment, and I'll be doing it in a bigger and better way. And I'll look back to this 100 and something episodes that I recorded before that, and I'll be like, yeah, at least I did something. I used to keep myself busy. I used to try and record something. I used to organize myself. I wasn't just sluggish. Like in my personal life, I was doing something. So yeah, forgive me for that. Today I'm not sleepy, but there's noise outside still because it's around 11:39. People are still up. People are watching movies and stuff. So I hope that today it will be better. The audio will be better. I just hope this one is going to be better than last week's episodes, both of them. Okay. So on today's episode, I'm going to be giving a review of a Nigerian movie called Man of God. Man of God is a 2022 Nigerian movie written by Shola Dada and directed by Bolanle Austin Peters. The cast members include Aka Nani, he plays Samuel Obalolu; Osas Igodaro plays Teju; Eukaria Anunobi Eku plays Reverend Mrs. Gift Asukuo; Mawuli Gava plays Pastor Zach; at Atlanta, Bridget Johnson plays Joy; Dorcas Shola Fapson plays Rekia; Ayo Mogaji plays Mami Samuel; Nifemi Lawal plays Young Samuel; Jude Chukuka plays Josiah Obalolu. Nelson Enwerem plays Pastor BJ, amongst other cast members. Let me just leave it at that because these names that I'm saying, there are just too many, and they're hard names. I don't want to embarrass myself any further. So I'm going to leave it at that. Now, if you love spoilers like me, continue listening to this, continue watching this. If you do not like spoilers, go to Netflix, watch the movie Man of God, and then come back and tell me if you agree with me or if you do not, because this is the official spoiler alert. Man of God is about this young man called Samuel. Samuel is raised in this very, very religious family, a very strict father. He used to beat him up like because of church. So we start in church and Samuel is with his friends. Young Samuel is with his friends in church, and his dad is the preacher. He's preaching at the front of the church, and I think he tells his friends to leave the church to go and start playing like kids do, because kids do this. I remember I used to go to Sunday school and I would leave Well, not Sunday school really, but if I went to the adult church with my grandmother, I wouldn't stay there. I would leave. But if I was in Sunday school, because all the other kids, all the other people inside that are also kids, I would stay. But if I was in the adult church, I would be very, very bored. And the thing that the pastor is preaching as well was very problematic to me, because he was like, all the plans of my enemies should fall from the air and crash, something like that. I meant to write it down, but I was so shook. And then I don't know, another one of, I don't know, pregnancies that are not mine to, I don't know, to do what. Like the way this movie begins, the things that this pastor is telling his congregants, and they are praying about them. I was like, you're really praying for your enemies to crash. Like in the that is something you teach people in church. Like to pray for their enemies to fall from the sky in their airplanes and die. What is that? And I think that's where just Samuel was like, no, I'm done. He leaves, he goes and starts playing with the other kids outside. His dad, seeing that he has left the church, he talks to the mom goes to the front. And so he goes outside to follow Samuel. He finds him there and then he talks badly to him. And then when they're at home, he beats him up. He used to whoop him terribly. He had marks on his back, and he will call him Satan and all of these things, like he's a child of Satan, that he will not, bring the family down, blah, blah, blah. Like he's going to work on removing the devil that is in him, no matter what. And he will beat him, beat him, beat him. And the mom will stand on the side with his brother, and she will be like, like how moms behave when the fathers are the ones who are punishing the children. So she's like, just stop. And then he'll be like, you're going to kill him one day. Stop doing that. He was so abusive. I understand caning your children. Do not get me wrong. Punish your child if they do something wrong. But what Samuel did, that was not worthy of what the dad was doing. But anyway, so one of those times that he's whooping him, he leaves and the mom goes and starts applying something on his back. And Samuel turns around and tells the mom, one day I'm going to leave this place and you're never going to see me again. And the mom was like, oh no. I understood him, because I will do the same. You raised me in such a strict environment, wanting me to do everything you want me to do. Like I don't have a mind of my own. I will want to leave. And the moment that I get the freedom to leave, I leave and you'll never see me again. And so Sam tells that to the mom. And then we move forward to a couple of years later. And there's this live band that is playing somewhere. And who is headlining it? Samuel. He's the musician, he's singing, and he has dancers on the stage. I was like, is this church? Until they started dancing, and I looked at that, I was like, no, people do not twerk in church. People do not do the things that these women were doing there. But anyway, so he's this musician, but he's in uni, I think. And so in uni, he is dating this girl. I think she was one of the dancers, and she was also a singer. And so they're there, and there's this other lady. Now this is Teju. Teju is friends with Sam, and I think they used to go to the same church. She's been wanting him to go back to church, to go to prison worship, to do all these churchy things, but he's too busy with with Rekia, and they are doing their thing, they're dancing, they're performing, and he was making money from it anyway, but he was also missing classes. And so Teju used to help him out, like with notes and stuff, and just assist him, like, and one time she brings him a letter from the mom, because now the mom has missed him. He hasn't been home for 3 years, and she wants to see him. But Sam is like, I don't want to go back there. She wants me to go back to the church. I do not want to do that. And my dad, I just cannot stand him. So there's even a moment where we are shown, the last time he was home, I think, he fought with the dad. He didn't fight with the dad, but the dad wanted to beat him up because he was listening to music that was not, godly. And so when he went to raise his hand, Sam caught it and he was like, let that be the last time you ever dare do this. And I was like, yeah. It gets to a point where even if you're a woman, there's a difference between disciplining your child and child abuse. The way that man was behaving with Sam, that was abuse. Plain and simple. There's no, it was abuse. And so he does that. He tells him never again. And so he moves on. In the future, he's doing this thing of dancing, blah, blah, blah. And then Rekia plans to perform something. I don't know, that planned something, but Sam does not attend. So she ends up performing by herself. I think she gets money and she moves into this big house. And she's like, this is where we'll be living. And when Sam goes there, she's telling him to quit school so that they can live there and do their music and performing and stuff. Before that happened, he had met Joy. Now, Teju, the friend, she had a friend. This is Joy. They used to go to prison worship together. They're in the same uni, and they were BFFs. And so she introduces Joy to Samuel. And when they are introduced, Samuel falls in love. Like, he saw her, fell in love, and he was in. And she was also flirting with him a little bit until Rekia came over and she was like very rude to them, which I understood because, like, you and I are dating, why are you flirting with another woman? But also Teju was like feeling a little bit salty because she was interested in Sam, but Sam now is showing interest in Joy. And so when he a few days later he asks her for Joy's room number, I think in the hostels, and Teju is upset. You can see she's very, very upset about it, and she walks away. Sam pursues Joy by himself and they start dating. So that moment where Rekia told him to quit school, blah blah blah, he refused, and so he pursued Joy now properly, and they start sort of dating, and they're kissing, they're blah blah blah, they're doing all of these things, and they start going to church because Joy has brought him back to church. Well, they're in church and they're doing all of these things. There's this pastor. Hey, your people are bad. Pastor BJ. Pastor BJ, like his name, he was such a Anyway, Pastor BJ introduces Joy to Pastor Zach. Why? Because he had had a conversation with her, telling her that Samuel is, I think he's a reverend, Josiah Obalolu's son. So, and Samuel had never told her that because he never wanted to disclose the fact that he was a reverend's son. I think it was a reverend, not just a pastor, something like that. But so she gets upset and all of these things. And I'm like, why are you getting upset? That is such a small thing to be upset about. So I didn't tell you who my father is. And she goes like, if you didn't tell me about such a thing, how could I trust that you'll tell me the truth in any other situation? And I'm like, what the hell do you mean? What? So she gets upset and she walks off. He writes a letter, apologizes to her, and eventually she forgives him and they continue with their relationship. But while they're continuing with their relationship, Pastor BJ now introduces Joy to Pastor Zach. And so they are there. Samuel is feeling some type of way, but is consistently going to church now. And he's been enjoying going to church because Joy is there. So I don't know what happens. I think I lost track a little bit, but then I see them hugging at some point and he gives Joy like a bracelet. And then it is a couple of days later, of months later or something like that, and Samuel is talking to Pastor BJ asking about Joy because apparently she had left and gone somewhere, I think to do ministry or something, and so he was asking about her. And Pastor BJ was just being vain about it. And so eventually he's like upset about it. Like, tell me where Joy is. I've been sending emails to her. She's not been responding. I need to know where she is. Pastor BJ tells him that, well, I'm sorry, but Joe is married to Pastor Zach. So he becomes so upset because he cannot believe it. The way, like, Joy didn't even break up with him. She just left with the promise of coming back, but she never did come back. So he leaves and he goes to back to his dorm room, and he's there, he's depressed, he stays there for a couple of days, I think, until Teju comes and finds him, and she consoles him and he cries on her shoulder. And then it's a couple of years later, I think now they're married. So they're married, they're living together. That is Teju and Samuel. But Samuel is still holding a torch for Joy. He keeps dreaming about her. He cheats on Teju with other women from the church because they're now church goers. They're doing leadership things in the church. I don't know what exactly they were doing, but they were somewhere up there because they would meet with the reverend and bishop from the church. And so He's sleeping with other women, that's for sure, and he's not sleeping with his wife because he's still thinking of Joy. And it was just so crazy. But that was their dynamic. So one time, which I felt like it was just trauma on trauma, because there's this part where the church they were going to belonged to Bishop Asukuo and Reverend Mrs. Gift Asukuo. So they Mrs. Gift calls him and he's like, remove the chains on your neck because they're making you look like I don't know what, because he was performing as a musician in the church. And she goes like, the song that you're performing in church, I don't like it, what does it say, blah blah blah, and all of this is, which makes Samuel feel some type of way. And I understood him, because this is like the same thing that he grew up going through with his dad. And now he's an adult and he's torn between, sticking to the church or leaving. And because he's chosen to stick to the church, he's still getting, put down and disrespected and all of these things by people who are supposed to be guiding him. And so he does not remove the necklace. He continues performing, and the like you could see the reverend, like the way she was looking at him, and this is in church. I was like, really? You're being judgy at the pulpit. Anyway, but the bishop was enjoying the music very, very much. Anyway, a couple of days later, they're meeting with the bishop and the reverend. This is all the leaders in the church. So that is Brother Nonsu, Teju, Samuel, and others. So they're the front, and they're being spoken to, like they're just being put down because they're not doing A or B or whatever. The rest are told to leave because this reverend, she's very, very abusive, by the way. I don't know how she's a leader in the church. If I were going to such a church, I would never go again if I ever had her talk to people like that. And so when they're leaving, she requests Teju and Samuel to remain behind. I think this is Bishop. Yeah. And then Bishop starts talking to him, and he goes like, we have had some rumors that you have been sleeping with women in the church. And he's telling him this in front of his wife. And so he's like upset. It is like, which women, blah blah blah. And they walk out, they go back home. Teju is like, where they smoke this fire, the people could not be talking about this if it was not true. And of course, someone starts defending himself and gaslights the wife, and he's not around the home for a while. And then when he comes back after, of course, Teju has missed him, she apologizes. Hey, and she hugs him, and well, I'm putting this in quotes, he forgives her as if she was the one who was being problematic. Anyway, it was true that he was sleeping with these younger women in church, and one of them was pregnant. She calls and tells him that, yeah, hey, I'm pregnant, so what are we going to do? And he goes like, I told you to take care of it. I'm not interested in any more than you taking care of it. And so she goes and does an abortion, but she sends photos, I think like scans or something, to prove that she had done what she was supposed to do, because those scans came, and I think that she's not the one who sent them, because she dies. The young lady who did the abortion, she died. But the envelope came to the house, and Teju is the one who accepted them. She opened them and she saw what was inside, and there was a note like, yeah, I took care of the pregnancy like you said. And so she felt bad. I thought she was going to confront him, but she didn't do anything about it. But at night when he tried to touch her, she refused. She was like, no. She didn't even, like, she was swatting him away. And so sometime later, Rekia comes back after, I think he said 9 years. She comes back and she invites him to go and visit her at her place. So he goes and he sees that she's living in this big, beautiful house. And she says that, oh, so you stuck to Teju, you married her and you are doing this church thing, blah 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 blah. I can't believe that you stuck to that and all of these things. And she goes like, you are in the pit of it, like you in a position to make a lot of money. Like you can just become a pastor. Because you've been in the church, you can start your own church and make a lot of money. Like you will make more money like than prostitutes and I don't know who else. And so he thinks about it and then he goes home. He pretends to be to have had calling from God, and God has told him to become a pastor, to start his own church. And he wakes up, Teju was asleep, and Teju wakes up and is like, I've had a calling from God and I should be a minister. Like, they start the church and then they start thinking about the name, and so they start their own church and they leave the other one. So at this church, they start small and people start coming and coming and coming, and they start making money. And this money, yeah, the person who's taking care of it is Reiki. I don't know how, but yeah, somehow it was happening like that. And so they move from one church to another and another because they're growing and they're growing and they're growing. He ends up like buying this huge mansion where they get to live, just the two of them. I don't know why they didn't have kids, by the way. It was never spoken about, or if they did, I didn't hear. But yeah, so they're in this huge mansion and they're living together, and she was enjoying the money, by the way. This is Teju. But I think she thought she could still change him, because she says something to the effect that she thought she was going to change him, that he was going to be a better man in the end. And so this guy, he's still sleeping with Rekia on the side while coming back home, pretending to be a pastor, a man of God, and all of that. He was just doing despicable things. And then after some time, who comes back to town? Joy and Zach. He's no longer Pastor Zach. He stopped ministry because it wasn't giving him money, and he didn't want to do what Samuel is doing in order to be able to make money out of people like that. So he didn't want to continue with ministry. He chose to do something different. But in doing so, Joy felt betrayed because she wanted to be a pastor. Actually, she was a pastor by the time she was leaving, and they just stopped ministry. So they come back and they meet him. Samuel sees her again and he's infatuated all over again. Like, he's in love with her again and everything. He calls her, they meet somewhere, they talk, and it was just, I don't know, bad. And then he decides that he's done. He wants to leave. And he goes to Rekia and talks to her about obtaining a lot of money because he wants to leave the country. So Rekia was doing very, very dubious things on the side to make the kind of money that she was making. And so she introduces him to them. And I think they make a deal about organ trafficking and money laundering or something like that. And so he does that and uses money from the church as well to clean that money, the money laundering part. And so one time, I don't know why Teju was going through these boxes, but she finds an envelope, and in checking them, there's this business that is happening in Canada where the organ trafficking is happening, I think. And he has been using the money from the church. So you remember the lady who died because of the abortion? The sister was trying to make him pay. So she has started sending him messages because she had gone to the police to report, but the police were like, we do not have evidence that he's the one who sent her there against her will to do the abortion. Like, when she died, we cannot blame him. And so she was sending him messages, calling him a murderer, and telling him like she knows what he did. And so he wants to leave and he wants to go to Canada. He has taken a visa, passport, a visa, and everything. Like, he's ready to leave. And then Teju finds those papers and she confronts him. So they talk about it. They start arguing, and he's like, I'm not happy. I need to leave. Blah blah blah. And she goes like, okay, just remember that I made you and I can break you. And this moment, he had just gotten a phone call from the police asking if he knew anything about that human trafficking, like human organ trafficking and stuff. And they denied it. But he knew it was on hot water because the police told him to not leave the state. And so after they had the fight with Teju, Teju goes and reports him to the police. She goes with this envelope, gives it to the police officers, and that's evidence enough for everything that he has done. And so he's taken into custody by the police. And then we skip, I think, a couple of years later, he's been released. We are back to his home church where the dad preaches, and he's at the front preaching and talking about the prodigal son returning, blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't know how you could have 100 sheep and then one disappears. I think that story is in the Bible as well. And then you go looking for that one instead of checking on this 99. So while he's doing that, this couple's over, and he comes out of it. That is Samuel. And he goes to the church while the dad is talking about the prodigal son returning. And he goes and he hugs him. The dad hugs him. And that's where the movie ends, with them praying. There's a part I forgot that is important. The brother, Daniel Obalolu, had come to see him while he was doing his ministry. And he had spoken to him and told him that the mom died after waiting to see him so many years. She was very brokenhearted and she died of a broken heart. And so he cried, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, I need to give you money. And the brother was also very upset with him and said a couple of things, which I did not appreciate. And he left telling him the things that his dad used to tell him as a kid. And so, yeah, him going back to his dad after all that, I don't know. But yeah, it ends with them praying in church, thanking God that the prodigal son has returned. And that was very, very stupid of this movie. Now, don't get me wrong. I loved the movie. I loved it very much. It was super long, 1 hour, 51 minutes. Very, very long. Nigerian movies are usually very, very long. I mean, like the most, it can even go for 2 hours and something. I've never understood why. So while choosing the Nigerian movie to watch, I usually look for one that is less than 2 hours. And this one went for 1 hour, 51 minutes. So it was very, very long. A lot of things were happening. The movie did not go where I was expecting it to go, because I thought that maybe in his conflict with, being a man of God and being a man of the world, maybe, I don't know, he will settle for one, but not just be complicated. Like, I'll be a man of God who is doing terrible things on the side. I didn't expect that. I was expecting that maybe he would move away from the church completely. Like that first part where he was dancing to those songs, blah, 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 and singing. I was expecting that he would be that kind of person. And no matter what they wanted to make him do, he will not go back to church. Although if his heart would be willing to go, or maybe joy, I don't know. Like, it makes sense in my head what I'm trying to say, but I don't know how to articulate it, because him being into organ trafficking and money laundering and him sleeping with other people whilst Teju stuck around all this time, and him going back to his home church, like after he did all those things, maybe he could have just ended up in prison or something, or even after coming from the prison he could have gone back to doing something else with his life. But going back to the prison that you escaped, because this movie wants us to believe that, the church, blah blah blah, you have to go, like, how I don't even know how to explain this. This dad abused his son, who was a kid doing kid things. But he abused him so much that he chose to run away from the church. And then, because of his anger or whatever, he goes and lashes out to the world. And he does all of these things because he's being a rebel. And then he comes back to the church, but he's still conflicted. He wants, like, part of him is in the world. His body is for the world, but his soul sort of wants to go back to church. I wish that in the end, yeah, this is what I was trying to say. I wish that in the end, either he would have gone back to another church, something that was different, something that meant something. That is, if his soul really wanted to go back to the church, he should have found a different home church, like somewhere else that he could have gone and worshipped with other people who would have accepted him. Him going back to his father, to his dad, as if he was a good person, like the prodigal son returning, like, yeah, I went outside there, I didn't listen to you and your canings and your abuse, and now I'm coming back to you. As if he's not a great person. He's not a good dad. And definitely not a good pastor or reverend or bishop or whatever. He's definitely none of those. He's not a good person. Because the way he was preaching, no, I could never go to such a church and sit and listen to that. The way he was treating his son, never. So his son going back, it felt like a betrayal to himself. That was a terrible ending. That was a terrible ending. I don't know where I was expecting it to go, honestly. But there were so many other endings I could have thought of. But him going back to his father's church, that would have been the last one. And his brother also just being surprised and also going and hugging him and people saying, thank you, God, like, he's back as if it's a good thing. I know. Mm-mm, mm-mm, mm-mm. He was not, a good father. He was not a good preacher. He was not a good human being. And this boy, no matter how many bad things he did, yes, he served his time in prison, which was very, very good. I wanted him to at least pay for what he was doing, and they did that. But him going back to his dad's church, that was just a wrong move because there's no redemption there. He's going back to the place that gave him trauma. And it's not like it's going to get better. So why end it like that? But anyway, yeah, that is my little musing on that. I just did get why it ended like that. But overall, it was an amazing movie. I loved it, but I found it to be too long, but I still loved it. I'll give it an 8 out of 10 because like the conflict that he was going through, you could see it. And Teju tried to be a good wife. Hey, she tried to be a good wife, but she was also enjoying the money that the church brought her. I feel like she knew that the man was a bad man. She knew that Samuel was not it. She knew that Samuel was doing shady things. She knew that Samuel had slept with other women and asked them to do abortions and stuff. And she still stuck by him. There's something I keep giving these tidbits from the shows that I watch online. There's something that Josh Johnson said during one of his comedies, and he said that when you see somebody being married to a terrible person, you see, like, I'll say this because it's something that Josh said. Melania got married to Trump, and people were like, oh, how did that happen to her? Oh, poor baby. Somebody should save her from him, blah, 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 blah. And then you hear the way they talk. You hear how she talks. You hear things about her. And she was also like allegedly the woman, the Melania that is being mentioned in the Epstein files. And you come to realize that, bad people marry bad people. And there's a reason why a good person, and I'm putting good person in quotes, a good person would allow herself to be married to a bad person. You see the bad in them, you see the evil in them, and you still go and get married to them. So Josh said, like, we see that and we feel sorry for people like that. And then we forget that these people could also be bad. And that's why they got married to this bad person. So, coming to our movie, Teju saw something bad in Samuel and she still stuck with him. Even when he was doing bad things, she was there by his side and all of these things, only to come and betray him at the end because he wanted to leave her. Where did she think this thing of theirs was going? Where? She married him knowing that he wasn't in love with her. He was still in love with Joy. And she just thought, I don't know, that he was going to change overnight. You cannot change a human being. You meet somebody and he's a smoker, you don't change them. You tell them you don't like the smoking. If they want to change, they do. If they don't want to change, you walk away. Because it's not something that you want. It's either you walk away or you sit there knowing that they're going to continue doing it. You meet somebody who is cheating on the wife, how you meet them is how you lose them. You meet him while he's cheating, best believe that he's going to cheat on you too. So, I don't know what Teju was expecting. But anyway, it's a long movie. And yeah, a lot of things that happened, I just didn't expect, but yeah, they happened. And as I said, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10 because it was lovely. It was, I don't know, it was entertaining. And I loved it, even though I complained about a couple of things. Like, it intrigued me, apart from the small part where I was distracted doing something different. But yeah, you should definitely go and watch it. I love the characters, I love their acting, and I don't know. I won't talk about a lot of things. Music, there was a lot of music, especially praise songs. I don't remember any of them, but they were good. Fashion, oh my God. The pastors' wives. It's Nigeria. I always say this when I talk about Nigerian movies. They know how to dress. So yeah, I loved it all. I loved the movie. I loved everything about it. It's just that I did not like the ending because that is not a redemption story. So yeah, if you have listened up to this moment, and you have already watched the movie, tell me in the comment section if you agree with me or not. If you haven't watched it yet, go watch it, decipher it for yourself, then come back and tell me in the comment section again if you agree with me or not. When I post this on my Instagram, when the day that it comes out, tell me over there as well, because I'll put something out on it, and I'll be super grateful. While you're doing that, remember to please like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell notifications so that whenever I upload, you're going to be amongst the first people to